Um, how about President Trump making friends with dictators? Almost everybody who thought they were smart said, you can't do that. Don't do that. But I guarantee you that after Trump's administration is over, that all other leaders will be compared to that because it's so obvious that it was a good idea. So long as you're also willing to put sanctions on them, so long as you're also willing to be tough, and this president clearly is. He clearly is willing to be tough at the same time he's being personally friendly. So the world said it's not important, and in fact, it's counterproductive to be friends with these dictators. Trump said, no, actually, that might be the only thing that matters. And it looks like, if you take North Korea as an example, and maybe even with President Xi in China, the personal relationship might be the only thing that matters. It might be. It could be the only thing that makes everything else work. President understood that. Everybody told President Trump, all the smart people did, that you can't run the country on Twitter. People said, well, okay, it did work during your campaign, but once you become president, you're not going to be tweeting, are you? Don't tweet as president. You can't do that. What did the president do? Tweeted like crazy. And maybe he has proven that you can run the world, or at least the country, by tweeting. He does it over and over again. You can see that he's completely cut through the middle people. He doesn't have his advisors cutting him off at the knees. He doesn't have anybody changing his message from what he wants it to be. He can go right to the people. History will record that he was completely right in his instinct that this tweeting was not just important, but really important. Like critical, essential. It's one of the buttons to the user interface for reality. And he saw it, and other people didn't. People said, you can't use these insulting nicknames. This is no way to be. This is grade school. Trump realized that those insulting nicknames were the user interface, that he could actually change the way we saw people and the world by pushing those buttons. So what Trump could see was these buttons that said nicknames, and everybody else said, don't push those buttons. You can't push those buttons. That would be the wrong thing to do. And Trump looked at them and said, watch this. Blick. Hey, it worked. Well, don't do it again. It'll never work again. You're sure you got lucky with low energy Jeb, but you're never going to be able to do that again. And Trump said, watch this. Bonk. And he pushed another button. And he just keeps pushing them. And people keep saying, I don't see any buttons, or they say, don't push those buttons, or that's not important, or that's the wrong direction. But he knew it was important. Here's another one. If you are an economist, there's sort of a truism that if you can get jobs right, in other words, unemployment, if you get that working right, almost everything else works out. People will invest more, almost everything works out. You'll have a lower deficit, etc. President Trump made it crystal clear that he had one objective, which was to get everybody working. That laser focus on the most important lever in the user interface was a little bit unique to President Trump. Nobody has ever been more identified with that one variable, jobs, than this president. Why is that important? Because it's the most important variable. Why did we have to wait for Trump to tell us what economists already know, which is that's the most important variable? And how you feel about that variable is what makes that variable change. So I told you about the new CEO move when Trump and Pence were first elected, but before they were even sworn in, the few months between the election and inauguration, they were out there talking to Carrier and talking to Ford about keeping jobs. They created a first impression that it was their top priority, and it remains looking like their top priority. Defense is always the top priority, but we don't think of it that way. Because once defense is working well, you have the luxury of thinking about other things, and that's where we are right now. And even though the Carrier and Ford story did not turn into a great number of jobs, I don't know if anything successful happened at all. He knew that making that first impression and going out of his way to work on it before he was even in office set the stage. He knew that was important, and he was right. Um, he also knew, Trump did, that energy is more important than almost anything, more important than experience, more important than facts. He knew that.